Hey folks, Iannone here, and welcome to the Sports Reel. Got myself a brand new setup, just trying to work the things out here. Bear with me, work in progress. Anyway, I thought it was time we looked at one of the all-time classic sports movies. Today, we're going to talk about Slapshot. Now, I must admit, I've only just recently seen this movie for the first time, but it is indeed a great movie. In fact, I'll just go ahead and say this right off the bat. If you haven't seen this movie yet, you should. So I'm not going to give you a breakdown of the plot this time around, A, because I want you to see it for yourself, and B, because there really isn't much of a plot to this one. Instead, this is going to be a more analytical review. I'm going to talk about the characters and the impact that this movie has had on the world of hockey. I really hope I'm smart enough to pull this off. Okay, I suppose I should start out with a quick breakdown of the plot. Paul Newman plays Reggie Dunlop, the player-coach of a struggling minor league hockey team, the Charlestown Chiefs. The team is terrible and attendance is low. To make matters worse, the local steel mill is about to get shut down, which will cost 10,000 workers their jobs. And let's face it, if you're a blue-collar worker who's about to lose his job, the last thing you want to do is spend money to see a struggling minor league hockey team. So Reggie learns from the team's general manager that the situation has gotten so bleak that the team will fold at the end of the season. Reggie then starts lying and manipulating people to make changes happen, and it works. So let's talk about Reggie. Basically, he's a con artist. He tries to drum up interest in a sale for the team by starting a rumor about a sale. He tells a local sports columnist that the team is in talks to be sold to a retirement community down in Florida. So remember how I was talking about a cultural impact that this movie had on the game of hockey? Well, this reporter character may not seem all that important, but his name is Dickie Dunn. Reggie gives him this false story about the team's pending sale, and Dickie eagerly writes about it. And to this day, in locker rooms across the NHL, when a reporter writes about a rumor as if it were true, players will refer to that reporter as Dickie Dunn. And then, of course, there are the Hanson brothers. No! 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 Stop that! Everybody's already made that joke. Easily the most memorable characters in the movie, even if not the most famous. The team picks them up mid-season, and once Reggie finally puts them in a game, he discovers that their aggressive style of play is a big hit with the fans, and the Chiefs are remade into a team of goons. Now, here's a note about the Hanson brothers. The Hanson brothers were played by Steve Carlson, Jeff Carlson, and David Hanson. Steve and Jeff were actually brothers, but David wasn't. Steve and Jeff had a brother named Jack who was supposed to be in the movie with them, but he couldn't make it because the Edmonton Oilers called him up for the World Hockey Association playoffs, so David Hanson stepped into the role. All of these men were real-life hockey players. In fact, David Hanson was nicknamed Killer Hanson. Another actor, Jerry Hauser, plays a character named Dave Killer Carlson, who is based on David Hanson, who I will remind you is playing one of the Hanson brothers, even though he's not related to the other two.
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
Once the Chiefs become a team of goons, the fans start coming to the games and everyone gets into the spirit. Even the team's bus driver gets into it. He takes a sledgehammer to the side of the bus to make it look mean, and then later, he just randomly appears wearing a biker helmet with a big old swastika right on it. It was the 70s. Bikers did that back then. Oh, and as a matter of fact, this movie contained a lot of swearing for its time. And yes, there's a lot of gay slurs. It's uncomfortable to listen to, and sad to say, it is still very common in locker rooms today. So if that sort of thing bothers you, you may not like this movie. For example, we have this scene where Reggie is in bed with a woman who is divorcing her husband, a player on another team. She tells Reggie that her husband beat her up once he found out she was having sex with another woman. He told her that if he married a dyke, that makes him a queer. Because no man could ever love a woman who was sexually attracted to both men and women. Oh, and by the way, tell me if you recognize this woman in bed with Reggie.
Without the guys. Every week, blah, blah, blah. Then, one night, we were talking about how we hated the life, and how we had never done much of anything ourselves.
Did you guess? No? Okay, well then prepare to have your childhood shattered.
What is it? What is it?
Yes, indeed, that is the mother from A Christmas Story, appearing topless. Is it just me? Am I the only one who has his mind blown by that? I mean, I know I shouldn't be surprised. She is an actress and it's just her job, but I never in a million years thought I would see the mother from A Christmas Story topless. So what else do I love about this movie? Well, it does have plenty of hockey action for the sports fan in the audience, but there's also some great lines, like this one.
Jesus, Lily, there's been 3 rapes and 2 murders in this park in 1 year.
I didn't do it.
God, I love that line. Now, one thing I can say about this movie is that it does have a big 70s vibe to it, from the hairstyles to the clothes and the soundtrack. But the soundtrack reuses many songs. For example, throughout the movie, we hear Maxine Nightingale's Right Back Where We Started From no less than 4 times.
You take the van, I'll keep the dog.
I guess the 70s just didn't produce enough timeless classics to fill out the soundtrack. So let's talk about the iconic scenes of the movie. There's this scene where the Chiefs start a big brawl with the other team before the game even starts, and we see the players bloody and bruised while the national anthem is still being played.
I got my eye on the 3 of you guys. You pull one thing, you're out of this game. Now I run a clean game here. I have any trouble, I'll suspend you. I'm listening to a fucking song!
But probably the most famous scene in the movie comes at the end when the Chiefs are having an all-out brawl with the other team. Their top scorer, Ned, has been benched for not playing dirty, but when he sees his wife in the stands, he gets into the rink and gets dirtier than anyone else. Make it stop!
What the? Oh. Well. Yeah, you take it off. Yeah, you take off that shirt. Nobody makes that shirt anymore. You're a dirty little bad. Yeah.
Take it off! Take it off! Take it off! Woo!
You're a dirty bad. You're dirty. You're dirty. That good for you.
But what's really hilarious about this scene is how the other team and the announcer react. After a game in which all the players are doing is fighting, they all get so deeply offended by this one guy taking off his clothes.
That's disgusting! I protest! Protest! Protest my ass!
Oh, I'm certainly glad Mrs. Carr isn't here tonight, because this is certainly a lascivious display.
I mean, can you imagine a scenario where there's a ton of violence right in front of everybody's eyes and they're all okay with it, but then they'd all lose their minds over a little bit of nudity? Okay, play the clip. So Slapshot is a rare movie that doesn't just stand the test of time. No, time has improved this movie's standings. At the time of its release, a lot of critics didn't like it. Gene Siskel gave the movie a mediocre review, but later said he regretted doing that, and went on to call it one of the best comedies of all time. And today, it is widely regarded as one of the best sports movies ever made. If you haven't seen it, you should. So yeah, I don't want to say too much more about this movie because it's worth watching, and I want you all to see it for yourselves if you haven't already. As for the direct-to-DVD sequels, those will be getting my usual treatment next time on the Sports Reel. I'm Iannone, and those are the highlights.
Love is good, love can be
What is it?